Today, we discuss our first impressions of Jurassic World Rebirth. Hello, and welcome back to the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Jim.
I'm Bobby.
And today, we talk about our first impressions of Jurassic World Rebirth. It was the one movie we talked about in our podcast that we were kind of, well, at least I was excited to go see. I don't know about Bobby, but, obviously, Jurassic Park, bought the cup.
I have a Beholder pirate, different shirt.
But we just wanted to discuss kind of our overall first impressions, and obviously this is going to have spoilers in it. I don't know how we can really talk about it. I mean, I guess we could do spoiler free for the first few minutes, but
usually for these, especially new movies, I try to talk just some general impressions, things that aren't spoilers, and then I'll be like, okay, now here's the spoiler section.
Okay, so first, the movie looked good. I think there was only one scene that I thought looked a little iffy, and that's when they were looking off the cliff. There's no spoilers there. When they were looking off the cliff, it looked like they were kind of obviously standing in front of something, green screen.
Yeah, there was a scene right in there. I don't remember if it's when they're looking off it. One of them definitely right in there, like kind of caught my eyes. Like, that looks
that was also
CGI-ish.
And for the most part, there were only a couple of the dinosaurs, and I did quotes on that because if you haven't seen any of the trailers or any of the stuff, you have to understand that there are some very unique creatures on this island.
Yeah.
And actually, I think some of those were the ones that didn't quite look right, but the other ones, I thought looked pretty good. I'd actually like to see that they did go more accurate on some of the dinosaurs, which we'll get into when we start talking about the actual spoiler sides of things. But, I mean, overall, I thought, the acting was all right. I mean, obviously, in the very beginning, you could tell who was fodder and who wasn't. When
you mean like the people that we don't even know if they actually got names?
Yes. They're like, oh, you.
No, that guy.
That one random person. They had a family.
That guy's whole character trait was he doesn't speak English very well.
So
I think. I don't even know if he spoke. I don't even know if he didn't speak English well or just preferred French.
I don't know, but no, I think overall it was good. I think it was kind of a back to basics for the franchise, because I think Fallen Kingdom was kind of like starting going off the rails, and Dominion was just completely off the rails. But I think Rebirth here, I think kind of reeled it back and said, you know what, let's go back to some of the formula that actually does work, and let's kind of go from there. Now, were there critiques that I was like, yeah, some things don't work quite, don't quite mesh well or don't work well? Yes, I would say it's not a perfect movie by any means. But anyways, I'll let you talk for a little bit.
Well, as if it's not obvious by when this video is when you folks are going to first be able to see this video, we did just come from seeing it like an hour ago. The theater was almost full.
Yeah.
So that kind of surprised us, because I've been to some other movies lately, and like I saw 28 Weeks Later a week ago a week or two ago when it came out, and I know it's an R-rated movie, but it wasn't anywhere near as full as this, and it was an excellent movie, by the way. You should check out my review on it. But now, when I did go watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that was almost full, actually. That surprised me and Sarah. But, people, definitely, they were getting into it a little bit. They were laughing at some of the jokes, and I didn't hear any screaming. So, I'm sure there were jump scares for some people, but a lot of it was telegraphed quite a ways out.
Yeah, like I said, the only scream that I heard was when when my son's my son likes to wear headphones when he goes to a movie, just because the audio stuff kind of gets to him at times, and there are headphones that actually play some of the audio.
You should be clear that you're talking about Grant.
Talking about Grant, my youngest, not Owen, but yeah, my youngest Grant. He has kind of auditory issues, so he likes to wear headphones, and usually the headphones will play. One side will play the audio that the movie plays. But there's another channel where you can have the descriptive audio, and I guess whoever had it last had that thing jacked all the way up, and when they finally the movie started, it just started screaming the description of the movie to him.
And the Universal logo.
It was just the Universal logo, and he just goes, ah! And scream. I guess maybe Universal logo is scary, but no, I mean, it was the only time I think I heard anyone generally scream at that.
But yeah, so this one was produced by Spielberg. I'm assuming the others were too. I know he directed the first one, but I think he has produced all the others. But just in case that's a thing, he definitely produced this. Was it Gareth Edwards directed it? I believe.
I'd have to look.
I think it's who this directed. He directed Rogue One, didn't he? I believe that's.
Well, and I'll pull that up since I've got the device here to do.
But
some things.
to kind of Jim's point, there are some unique specimens. We'll talk about that a little bit in the spoiler section. And yeah, this definitely felt like a better version of the third movie, where it's, I don't think I'm spoiling it by saying this, but it's an expedition to one of the islands to get some things.
Yeah, and it was Gareth Edwards that did that. And this, if people want to know, takes place 5 years after Dominion.
Okay.
That's what it says in this synopsis. I don't think
And is he the guy who directed Rogue One?
Well, now I've got to look that up. Give me a second.
Well, yeah, it should be like on the top of his filmography.
Yes, Rogue One.
Yeah.
You got it.
So yeah, it's competently directed by the guy that directed the best Disney Star Wars movie. So
It's PG-13 for
it
those.
is PG-13. There weren't really any gruesome deaths, except for the one guy that got bit in half, maybe.
Yeah, I can say I think the most gore you see is of a dead animal. That's
Yeah, that was a little gruesome.
But I mean,
And I kind of felt the smell on that one based
Yeah.
on how everyone was reacting in the movie. But yeah, like it doesn't ignore the other movies. And we'll get a little bit more to that in spoilers. It does take those into account. But it kind of brushes a lot of it off, but acknowledges it. Very similar to 28 years later. How in like the very beginning of the movie, it's like, oh yeah, and the virus got beaten back, and now it's only back in England again. It's kind of along those lines. There's some verbiage at the beginning. I do a little bit of reading, and kind of is like, okay, so yes, we acknowledge how things were. Now they're not, kind of, sort of, and we see a little bit of that in the opening of the movie, and it did. I felt like it really maintained the cynicism of the first Jurassic World movie, because it brought up that whole like, so regular dinosaurs just weren't good enough. Like people just got bored with them. And I'm just like, on the one hand, I see that happening, but on the other hand, like that is just such a statement, and not a good one, of people that like animals that have been dead for 65 million years, science brings them back to life, and that just becomes boring to people. Like I would never be bored of that.
but the problem I have with that though is if that was the case, going to a zoo would be boring.
Yeah.
And I don't see just going to a regular zoo being boring. I mean, anytime I go, I mean, they could be the same animals every single time you go, and I'll still go to the zoo because it's...
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen enough of these movies to know that I don't need to go to the park to see the ones that eat people. Like, I'd be perfectly fine going to see like a Triceratops. Like, that would never lose its amazement with me, seeing a Triceratops or a Stegosaurus or a Brontosaurus. It doesn't matter they only eat plants. Like, that's almost a borderline miracle. And like, yeah, so I don't know if I believe that's the reaction. That's the cynicism in me believes that. The part of me that still thinks there's wonder left in this world is like, no, not a chance. Maybe the rich people that can afford it might get bored with it. But like, this is why I don't understand why there wasn't like, and this is a criticism of the movies in general, why they couldn't possibly build a park that only has like the Triceratops, the probably not the Brontosaurus, they're pretty big, but the ones about that size that don't really pose a huge threat to people, like on the mainland. I mean, if they act any way like they do in the movies, which obviously it's all fictional, we don't know, but yeah. If they acted any way remotely like that, you could literally have a petting zoo for these things. Like, these things are so docile.
Well, in Jurassic World, they did have a petting zoo.
Yeah, but I mean, like, was it on the mainland or was it?
No, it was on the island. But
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean,
like
they literally had a petting zoo.
Yeah, but like you could put that on the mainland, like in California or Florida or Texas, somewhere like that, and people that can't afford to fly off the coast of Costa Rica, but could drive there, or people from Canada and Mexico and every place else that's within reasonable distance. They could go see those, and those people would never lose the sense of amazement of that. And that's
and I don't know why it made me think about it. The one thing I actually liked about the first Jurassic World movie is that the first of the Jurassic World series, not the Jurassic Park series, but the first of the Jurassic World, was that they actually made it feel like a real theme park. I mean, they had a Margaritaville.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like a real theme park.
I mean, Jimmy Buffett ran off with 2 margaritas in the movie.
Yeah.
As a cameo, but...
was he really?
Yes.
I did not
I kid you
know
not. He runs from, the thing,
Wow.
has a margarita in each hand.
I might actually have to rewatch that one again.
But... No, I think this one kind of more harkens back to like the original Jurassic Park in its feel, but I mean, it's still not. I mean,
Well, I don't know if anything ever will be. It's like this short I saw the other day. Is this person like, wait, I've lost all my memories. They like run and put Lord of the Rings on again so they can experience it again for the first time. Although how they remembered to do that leaves a little question. But but I get the idea. But yeah, this harkens back to, okay, we're trapped on the tropical island with the monsters that want to kill us. Like because I know Jurassic Park, it's the dinosaurs and everything, but that's what it is. It's a tropical island horror movie, is what it is.
And you get that, and you get a little bit of the, I don't know. I think that, like I said, I think the way that it came back to what it was, what was more familiar, and kind of stepped away from the route it was going down. Don't get me wrong, I do like the fact they were going and saying, hey, yeah, we're cloning dinosaurs, but what's stopping us from cloning people? And
yeah,
now the next step would be human dinosaur hybrids, which was the original Jurassic Park 4 story before we got Jurassic World. So I would have been down for that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is the logical conclusion, but then and I'm torn on stuff like that. Because, like, on the one hand, yes, that's where the evolution of that story would probably go, but on the other hand, like, you're into, like, a whole different ball game once you get to, like, weird transhumanism, stuff like that. That's one of the complaints people have about the more recent Alien movies. They think that Ridley Scott's just decided, like, it's transhumanism or bust. And that kind of gets away from the whole, like, completely unnatural, totally alien killing machine that you found out in space that's just completely alien in every sense of the word to human experience. Like, that's horror. I mean, the other's horror too, but like it's a different kind of horror.
Well, the when in was it Alien Resurrection when they brought the child?
You haven't seen Alien Romulus yet, have you?
No, is that back?
Yes, in a way.
Because I'm gonna say that thing was horrid.
Okay, well, spoiler alert for a movie that came out last year. In Alien Romulus, you find out that the company has gotten a hold. They got a hold of the alien from the first movie. They found it out in space in the wreckage of the Nostromo, and they brought it on board and they cloned it. But by cloning it, it just created the face huggers, and so they made a bunch of them. And then that thing escaped, and they had to kill it. But by the time it did, it killed most of the people on board the ship. And so the company's goal is they realize this thing has like some bizarre genetic properties, and they're like, we're going to combine this with human DNA to make unstoppable people so we can go colonize all these planets. Because the problem with their colonization is like humans are only built for Earth, not these other planets. But they pump them full of this crap. Well, they could survive in space maybe. And so this woman who's pregnant, like that's the only shot of survival she has because something happened to her. And so they pump her full of this stuff, and well, the hybrid comes out. And it looks more like a cross between like a human, an engineer, and an alien. It's taller, looks more like an engineer, but it's just a monster of some kind. And it's pretty monstrous. So yeah, so the concept is definitely back.
Did it knock its mother's lower jaw off or face off?
I don't remember how she died.
But well, anyways, I don't know if there's anything else we can get to with the spoiler-free section of this, because I mean, I guess the thing is if you haven't, if you're interested in going and watch it, I would go and watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely like the other Jurassic Park movies. It's for the big screen. This is a theatrical movie. Now, yeah, if you got a giant TV and a kick-ass sound system at home, it's probably great. But like, as long as you can tolerate other people, like this is the kind of movie that you want to go see in theaters. And in fact, I think we got 2 more of those before the end of the month here with Superman and the Fantastic Four. Fingers crossed here. But yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it for the non-spoiler section. So, folks, if you're getting off the train here, we always appreciate like, share, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Comment down below if you plan on going to see it or if you have seen it. But, yeah, we are going into the spoiler zone. Kind of like the danger zone, but no Kenny Loggins. And no F-14s.
So, the whole synopsis of this movie is dinosaur DNA can cure things. And this time it's not cancer, so it's, heart disease?
Yeah, it was heart disease. The general idea being that they kept spelling out that they think some of these dinosaurs lived over 100 years. And part of that would be, obviously, that your heart still functions. So they needed tissue samples, which were basically just blood samples. Yeah. Because these dinosaurs were very large, and to survive that long, you have to have an excellent heart. So that was the general theory behind everything. So they needed the tissue samples, so they could figure out why, and then apply that to human beings.
And this is where the kind of the first point of just like, you know what, I don't really care about the science behind it. I mean, I do, because it's like it's the most important thing to like get behind a movie. But the very first thing they say is like, well, we have to have DNA from specific dinosaurs. They've got to be the largest. And they mentioned 3 dinosaurs, which happen to be in the museum that they're in, like the skeletons of.
Yeah.
And first of all, okay, they have to be large dinosaurs. I get that. But why does it have to be the largest? Why can't it be just something that's quite...
Why can't it just be as long as it is at least this size?
Because the very first thing that you run across when the movie's starting is there's a sick Apatosaurus just laying in the streets laying in the city streets. Why is that not big enough?
Yeah.
Because then the movie would have no plot.
Also, before we go any farther, like I need to explain that whole like text at the beginning thing. So the last movie ended with dinosaurs just willy-nilly all over the planet, right? Actually, the one before that ended with that. This one, they've kind of been corralling them. The last one,
Dominion,
2 movies ago, ended with dinosaurs everywhere.
So Fallen Kingdom ended with dinosaurs everywhere. Dominion ended with them kind of starting to corral.
They were starting to corral them, but they were still out there. You know, like you see the ones like in some of the cold environments. And so this one opens with, well, turns out the Earth was quite a bit different 65 million years ago, and they can't really survive anywhere outside the tropics because that's the closest to how the Earth was. It's hotter, higher oxygen content, more trees, things like that. Because for those of you that don't know, the oxygen content used to be quite a bit higher. These animals would all just suffocate, the giant ones. Like, there's not enough oxygen. And conversely, if the planet were like that again, we would die. We would just go into a coma, essentially, and die because it'd overload our systems. So our species are not compatible in that respect. Now, mind you, these do have frog DNA. It's like Dr. Wu pointed out in part 4, what we see, that's not what these animals actually looked like. Because the first Jurassic Park was made before they came to the conclusion these things probably had feathers and things like that. So in Jurassic World, that was the kind of the concession of like, well, real world science is advanced, so we have to acknowledge that. And it was a throwaway line where Wu basically said, these things are all mutant freaks. Like, none of them were actual real dinosaurs. But, so it says that they've all basically been, they're all the ones that are still left alive are in the tropics. There's not very many outside that. And the one Jim was talking about, they mentioned there's a big traffic jam because it escaped from the zoo there in New York. So they are actually in zoos, some of them. But yeah, and it's gigantic and it's just like flopped over in the street.
Which makes me wonder in that point, well, why can't they just get that? And why? Because the things that they...
Yeah, you would think that'd be big enough.
And I'm going to circle back because I do have a, 19 years ago or 17 years ago, how many ever years ago it was like something like that.
I think it's a 19 or 17. It's 19 or 17. Jim's right, it's one of the two.
Where they show... And I don't even know why, to be honest, I don't even know why they showed it, because it's obviously where they're going to end up later.
Yeah.
But they show an engine lab, and what kind of door
could be defeated by a Snickers wrapper?
Talk about product placement.
Yes, that was some excellent product placement right there. Congratulations, Snickers.
You just murdered everyone in that facility. Well, not everyone.
Or at least that one guy.
Yeah, that one poor guy. And he was in, that was in the trailer, but yeah, they kind of give you a backstory of where the big bad of the movie comes from. But to me, I think it should have been something like they found it on like a tape or something, like a lost footage kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because to me, it served no purpose besides kind of to foreshadow the big bad. And to me, you actually just showed the whole monster right in the beginning. Not the best thing, but then that's where it jumps into present day, where they're talking about needing the dinosaur DNA to... Which is fine. Like, I think, they do that today. Like, there's animals that they said, hey, their DNA can hold the key to curing certain things.
You mean like in The Medicine Man?
Yes.
Those ants that they found, that Sean Connery found there, and it's like, this is it. This is the one that tested. But they're like burning the rainforest like 10 minutes behind him. And he's like, we got to find him. Like,
But the
good movie, by the way. Folks should watch it.
The first thing is that they should have went with a better reason behind than they need to be the largest animals because they have the biggest hearts. Well, why not just go to a blue whale and get the DNA from a blue whale?
Yeah, blue whale's pretty big.
But no, so like I said, they're in a museum with skeletons around, and the things that they said we need the DNA from a Titanosaurus. We need one from a Mosasaurus and one from a Quetzalcoatl. I'm like, first of all, we may think those are the biggest, but that's just because that's all we found so far that were the largest. Yeah,
and like to the point of what Jim was talking about there at the beginning, like we don't know what other weird mutant freaks InGen has cooked up, because this was like the monster factory from what I talked about earlier, the whole like, oh, the other dinosaurs aren't good enough. Like this is where they made the stuff that was supposed to replace them. When they're like, well, let's really kick it into high gear.
Yes, which later when we get to that part, there are a few of them out there. It's just like, it's like, yeah, well, this is exactly what you need to make. I mean, how would you even contain half of these animals to show anybody?
Especially the D-Rex.
Yes. Was the Distoris?
Yeah, I don't know what the D stood for.
It's like Distorius or something like that. I don't know. It's distorted.
Distorted DNA.
But anyways, so first thing, it's like it was kind of a weird reason to show up on the island. I mean, they could have said anything else. They could have just been like, Mumbo science things. This is why we need these dinosaur DNA.
It could have literally been, we're going to open up our own theme park. We want some major attractions. Here's a bunch of money, guys. Want to come with us?
So yeah, kind of a dumb reason to get on the island. To be honest, when Jurassic World or Jurassic Park 3 had a better reason for Alan Grant to return to the island than the other one. Oh yeah, we're doing a sightseeing tour. We're just gonna fly over the island. Well, okay.
Yeah.
And that's where the second kind of point of, they had to put some people that in danger that really shouldn't have been there in the first place, just to add some tension to the scenes.
Well,
the random people that show up, for whatever reason, sailing in the area where there's supposedly a Moses.
Well, but before we get to that, let's so our main cast is we have obviously evil corporate guy.
Yep.
Scarlett Johansson as some kind of like mercenary, as is discussed at one point in the movie. That's essentially what she is. Mahershala Ali as mercenary friend who owns a boat.
Yeah. By the way, his boat was like super advanced for a guy out in the middle of.
Yeah. Then some expendable crew members on the boat that I don't even know if we got names for them.
Yeah. So one of them, DeSanto.
Yeah, DeSanto. I can never forget that.
You get the first name. Let's see, who was the other one?
Is DeSanto the one that spoke French?
Bobby Atwater, the guy that got eaten by the.
The other mercenary guy.
Yeah, and then there's Leclerc, the French guy.
Okay.
And Nina.
Okay. So yeah, and then we have our archaeologist probably. Yeah, because we got the name drop of Alan Grant there.
Yeah, because he said that was Dr. Henry Loomis.
Oh, I should have remembered Dr. Loomis, the psychiatrist from Halloween.
Yes, and then Martin Krebs was the
evil corporate type.
Evil corporate guy.
So yeah, so we have those, and then like Jim was saying, we have this random family that's just kind of out sailing and then gets attacked, and like Mahershala Ali's like, well, we're going to go rescue him, and they rescue him, like, but we're not going to take him anyplace safe. We're going back to track the dinosaur that almost killed them because, we think we're going to fare better. And then we're going to the island full of monster dinosaurs. So yeah, that plan did not go so great. I don't know what they added to the movie though. Like, I think we could have just put a couple more nobodies with the other crew. Like, they seem to be there for, like, comic relief / I don't know, some kind of anti-corporate message, although the archaeologist was, like, banging that drum most of the movie.
Well, the one guy had, like, a redemption arc, I think he was trying to have, like, trying to save the kids, and because maybe he can save his own kid, and...
Yeah, that's true.
So I think there was a redemption arc there. And I think The mercenary group was the ones that were trying to go out and get the DNA. This group was just trying to survive, and they wanted to, have a couple scenes. They wanted to have the raft scene. So there's a raft scene in a part of the movie where is ripped right from the original Jurassic Park book. I mean,
yeah,
minus the characters are different, obviously, but the scene is
with the most indestructible raft known to man. Like. Yes. This thing has got to be up there with the one Indian company bailed out of the plane and survived in the Temple of Doom. Started to fall from like about 1,000 feet, if I remember right.
They actually proved on Mythbusters that would work.
I think you told me that before.
Yes. Yeah. So you've got that family there. I mean, I think, like you said, I think they're there for kind of a comic relief.
I do also think that the kid is there for the younger audience to kind of connect with. And definitely to sell toys of that Triceratops looking thing.
Oh, the Protoceratops, I think is what that is? Or?
Yep. That is definitely to sell toys. I think there's a Lego set of that already. And there's probably like stuffed animals on the way if they aren't here. I mean, the thing looked cute, don't get me wrong. Like Spielberg knows what he's doing.
But yeah, so you've got the first family gets attacked by the Mosasaurus. which is weird because they also saw the Spinosaurus swimming off in the distance, and then the Mosasaurus attacks. So they get picked up because somehow they get the radio, and after the Mosasaurus knocks their boat over, leaves them alone. So I guess the thing's like, it's a wooden ship. I have no desire for that. And again, like eating those people, what would it do for itself?
Jim, I think we're not even supposed to contemplate like these things actually trying to survive.
Well,
because there would be no animals left in the ocean around that thing. Kind of like on the island. Given the D-Rex's size, like it has to eat some ungodly amount of meat constantly to survive. And I know it's a reptile that can kind of go dormant, but like presumably, so it probably only has to eat every couple of days. But still, like it's got to be pretty big things, which would be the other dinosaurs.
So the one thing that
which would be eating all the plants.
One of the first things that I will give it a very positive on is that they actually went back and redid the Spinosaurus to make it more accurate to the more recent discoveries, where they said, I don't know, if you've ever watched any science shows, like the evolution of what the Spinosaurus should look like has just drastically changed. At like one point, it's pretty much just dragon bottom, like it could never, like they had it where it couldn't even get out of the water, kind of thing. But no, I was glad to actually see that. And the Spinosaurus, a couple people would be a good snack for it. Poor Bobby Atwater, who
we hardly knew him.
The other thing is did the mercenaries not bring actual weapons of any kind?
Well, he had one. He had the neurotoxin stuff.
And he like shot the crap out of them, and none of them died.
Yeah.
I have no idea what was going on there.
Yeah, but it's also remember Scarlett Johansson's character did point out that like they never really had weapons to begin with. Like they had things that were going to piss off the dinosaurs. That's about it. Because like human scale weapons really aren't going to do much to them. Yeah, because our weapons are designed to penetrate like this soft fleshy substance, not thick reptilian hide on a 50-foot tall creature.
And so when we actually get our first little action scene there, where they,
although having said that, they should have reversed. They should have had. They had the needles to extract the chemical, the biological material they needed.
Yeah.
They should have had something that was that same concept, but loaded up with the neurotoxin.
Yep. Yeah, then that's where they had the second thing, like, oh, the animal can't be dead because blah, blah, blah immediately decays after. I'm like, okay. I don't think it's like instantaneous. Like,
I'm no science expert, and I'm definitely not an expert on like hemoglobin and blood and everything, but I don't think blood begins coagulating the absolute second that you die. And so, like, if they were to kill one of these creatures and immediately extract the blood, I think it would be just fine. I think. Now, if any of you out there know for sure, let me know.
Now, one thing I was very curious about is that the way that they were extracting the DNA was through a dart gun that then would rocket off the animal, which, don't get me wrong, it's a brilliant move. But two is, I wonder if they got that from a game, because one of the games that I play is Jurassic World Alive, which is like Pokemon Go, but with Jurassic Park, Jurassic World dinosaurs. And the way that you get DNA is through a drone with a dart gun.
That could be.
And I always wondered, how did they get the darts back? I mean, you're darting these animals, whether flying or on the ground or whatever, and well, maybe that's where that came from. Be interesting if that is.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet the design of that dart gun is also to sell toys, because that looked kind of like a Nerf gun.
Well, yeah, they want to be like, oh, DNA. But yeah, and then like, oh, you got to be within 10 meters. Okay, so you can pretty much run over the damn Mosasaurus with your boat at that point.
Yeah.
And again, then you get like the Jaws mentality. I mean, like, why does a Mosasaurus even care about the boat? I mean, at some point it's going to be like, it's a giant ship. Yeah, there's people on it, but what am I going to do with this? You know, it's like, at least with the Spinosauruses, they were kind of like climbing on the thing, like eating the people off of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened in Jurassic World 3 or Jurassic Park 3 when remember they were parasailing and the boat went into the fog, and then when it came out there was nobody on it.
Yeah.
Could have been what happened to them. So so you get your first action sequence. I say it was okay with the Spinosaurus and stuff. Already eat a couple of people right then, or eat one person. One thing I didn't get though is they were being followed in by at least four Spinosaurus and the Mosasaurus, and people are jumping off the back of the boat.
Yeah.
Well,
What I didn't get was how they were like, the boat's going to crash. And I was like, he didn't say he was going to crash the boat. He said, I'm going to shallow waters, which might crash the boat. But it's like everyone just took it on blind faith. Yeah, we're going to crash. We better get the hell out of here.
well, hell, and he stayed on the boat and it just
And he was just fine.
he's like, yeah, whatever. But no, then you get so besides the people just jumping off the boat randomly, and then the one guy that wanted to kill the girl for whatever reason because she was making a phone call to call for help.
Yeah, she's trying to call in the Coast Guard because remember what they're doing is highly illegal.
Yeah.
And he didn't need them showing up to like ruin the day.
And the Coast Guard didn't come anyways when they wrecked their boat either. So
That's true.
I don't think the Coast Guard's like, screw it, you're done.
They're dead. The dinosaurs will get them.
But so, you've got the first D-bag move and that bites them in the ass later. But then you've got the single stupidest thing is they try to take all of the gear. For whatever reason, instead of leaving it on the boat until they wreck it and then get the stuff off the boat, they throw it into the water and then pull it onto shore. So I don't know if you saw that Scarlett Johansson and the other one of the archaeologist had like this tiny pack. Then Nina had this gigantic thing that she was trying to like drag onto shore by herself. And then at some point you just go, you know what? I'm not going to get any of this stuff. But she does the stupidest thing you could possibly do and puts her back to the water.
Yeah, well, that bit her in the end.
And then guess what they do right afterwards? They're like, if you can't carry it for a day, don't bring it. And drop all their gear. So it's like, what was the point of Nina dying just to a minute later go, And they like these people are supposedly people they know. And they hardly mourn any of them. They're like, no! All right, let's get going.
Well, I mean, money.
And you missed when the French guy gets eaten. Again, they could have saved him. I mean, he was like, I don't think he was dead yet. I think he was being eaten alive like a pelican would eat because the Quetzalcoatl was swallowing him. But they had a line tethered to him. Just
yeah. Well, tell them about the steps.
Yeah, so there's a scene, and this is also, and we're kind of jumping around here because there may be some things that kind of come to our mind, and this is not in any particular order at the moment. We may get towards the end where we get more lined up, but the first DNA they get is from the Mosasaurus. That one they get before they wreck the boat. The second one they get is from the Titanosaurus, which was the easiest of all of them to get because there was nothing around. It was just them.
Yeah,
and hell, they didn't even really notice that they were even there.
Yeah, and for whatever it's worth, that scene, that whole scene, that whole sequence, is definitely supposed to be reminiscent of in the first Jurassic Park when they come across the Brontosaurus,
the Brachiosaurus.
Brachiosaurus.
Yep.
Just the wonder and awe of this gigantic yet fairly docile creature. The guy literally is able to go up and touch it. And like one of the arguments they made to convince him to come along was, this would be the archaeologist, was like
we say archaeologist, but I think he's that would.
I'm assuming he's an archaeologist. I don't know because he said he'd gone on some digs too.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, paleontologist.
Yeah, he could be that. I don't know.
Anyways,
they're trying to convince him early on in the movie. And Scarlett Johansson's like, well, have you ever actually seen one of these things a lot? Because he's working in a museum, and they're shutting down the exhibit because no one wants to come see the dinosaur bones because they can go see the living ones. But also they've lost interest in those too. So she's like, have you ever actually seen one of these? He's like, yeah. She's like, in a zoo or in the wild? And mistakenly saying in their natural habitat, which doesn't exist anymore and hasn't for 65 million years. But, in the wild is what she means. And so this was his moment of like actually, physically contacting this thing that represents his life's work that he's been studying and everything, actually seeing one up close and personal. Kind of like in Star Trek First Contact, whenever Picard goes up and touches the Phoenix, only there's no Data there to ask him, like, what are you doing? Does this actually touching this mean something to you? And Data's like, I detect all these imperfections. Like, shut up, Data. Like, just go with the moment. But so it's a moment like that, and it's, you got the main Jurassic Park theme swelling up. Scarlett Johansson, I think, actually had some tears in her eyes because just the splendor and majesty of, these gigantic yet gentle creatures. I was waiting for one of them to get knocked over by those giant tails that are just kind of whipping around everywhere like a giant anaconda at the end.
I still want to know what was in the water. They allude to something in the water, but it never comes to fruition on that. But so like the main group getting DNA, really don't have any problems until they're getting the Quetzalcoatl DNA. The poor family gets like all the they fall down a hill. They
Come across the T-Rex.
come across a T-Rex. The one guy, while he's peeing, about gets pounced by a velociraptor, which then gets pounced by the first of the mutated monsters that we get to see, because somebody's like, what's worse than worse than a velociraptor? How about a flying velociraptor?
Yeah. The one girl just before the T-Rex just about has a bad encounter with a Dilophosaurus.
Yeah. Then they get the T-Rex scene, which they had in the trailer. Which again, the way that they played it in the trailer, that when she inflated the raft, that's what stirred the T-Rex to come after them, but it wasn't. Like the T-Rex was just like kind of off doing its own thing, but
Well, it couldn't see her anymore. She's on the other side of the raft.
Yeah.
Remember, it's the whole motion thing.
which is bullshit. Which because that was based off old science, but then they had to retroactively go back and say, well, it's because of the frog DNA. But no, then frogs have really good eyesight too for being able to.
Yeah.
So that never really makes any sense. But so the stairs. I know I've kind of bounced around, but I kind of want to get us caught up to where we're at. So they're trying to.
So the Quetzalcoatl is a flying dinosaur.
Yes, if you didn't know, it's like they said it's the size of an F-16. I don't know if it's quite that big, but it's very large. It could eat a person it could eat you like a pelican, very similar to a pelican. Like it would just gulp you down. It's big enough to do that. And so they have to. They at least said, well, we don't have to get it from the thing itself, because they said that may be a little bit of a challenge to get close enough to it. So they said we can get it from its egg. Cool, whatever. So they rappel down this cliff, and at some point while they're rappelling down, the business guy goes, "Hey, look there's some stairs here."
Well, it wasn't him. It was Mahershala Ali's character.
Well, yeah, it was one of the two. They're like, "Hey, look at some stairs," and you're thinking, "Oh, it's stairs to get down to this chamber they're going to," because you realize that it's like a temple on the side of the cliff.
Yeah, that's purely for symbolism, because you know where the name Quetzalcoatl comes from, right?
Yeah.
Quetzalcoatl is an Aztec god.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, the islands themselves were supposedly originally inhabited and had temples and stuff on them. If you ever played the game Jurassic Park Trespasser, which was a game that was ahead of its time but not quite ready to be rolled out into the world because it's like really buggy, but supposedly that's where Half-Life decided to get a lot of their physics engine from, or like to build it off of. But regardless, they show these stairs, and it makes you think, oh, they're going to find a way down there to help them out or do something. No, the stairs are never mentioned again. Like I think it was like meant to be mentioned and something meant to happen there, but nothing ever does.
Probably a scene that was filmed but got cut, or after they filmed that, they cut the part out of the script and never filmed the other. And
Yeah, who knows? But anyways, this is when we get, I guess, our third death of the expendable crew, which would actually be up until the end. You know, this is the final death of the mercenary group. And you know, you think the guy's gonna make it because they're like pulling him up the side of the cliff, and he's trying to like climb up. And by the time they get him to the top, all they see is a Quetzalcoatl, and they see him in its mouth. And I was just waiting for them to like fish him out, but no, he gets eaten. Yeah. And the Quetzalcoatl, I was not real pleased with the design. Like I thought it looked, I don't know, it looked off. Like you had the Titanosaurus, which looked good. The Mosasaurus looked good. I thought the Spinosaurus, which you could see, looked pretty good. That was the first one that kind of was like, eh.
Okay, so I have to ask, because I went to the restroom while part of this happened. The ones that are chasing them later, that's not the Quetzalcoatl, right?
No.
Okay, so is this the only part that we saw the Quetzalcoatl?
Yes, and you only see
So
one.
the 5 minutes where I left the movie is the only part we saw it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't actually see it. Okay.
So, I don't know. And that's what's on my drink cup here. So, yeah, see, later you get another pterosaur, but like I said, that's the
hybrid with the raptors.
The hybrid with the raptor, which oddly enough, in the scene where it showed that reminiscent of the kitchen scene in the original Jurassic Park, didn't click its claw on the ground. Every other raptor has done that, but no, not that one. Yeah, so anywho, so at some point they're all going to the same spot. So the family's making their way there by following the geothermal pipes. And that's how they figure out how to get to the village that they're getting to. That's how they're supposed to be getting extracted. The other group makes it that way because I say maybe have a map. I have no clue. I have no clue how they got there. At some point, the businessman gets a gun that's just randomly in a helicopter hanging upside down.
Well, they got it from a person.
Yeah, I mean, I get he got it from a person, but one, the gun has been out in the elements for how long?
It's a Glock. It should be all right.
But anyways, he had to have a weapon because he knew he was going to backstab everybody at some point in time. So they all converge to this.
For whatever it's worth, in the backstabbing, I think legitimately he would have been okay if everyone got on board the helicopter and just agreed not to say anything.
Yeah.
Like, he seemed to be amenable to that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. He never was like, no, we shouldn't do that. He's just like,
he was never like, I'm just going to shoot you all just in case. You know, he's like, no, like, let's do this, guys. Like, let's all get what we want out of this. We'll forget that whole I tried to have one of you killed. Like, you know, I'll throw some money your way, random people.
Yeah, I mean, if y'all survive, I mean, I guess enough money would.
Yeah.
But they make it all back to the compound. The one thing I was trying to figure out is if this compound was from 19 years ago, is when they had electric vehicles. The vehicle he was driving was an electric vehicle.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Because it made no noise. It just, and then it had an alarm going off on it for some reason.
Well, it's got to attract the dinosaurs.
Yes. And then this is where my second major critique of the movie came from, is they're in the village. For some reason, all the lights and music comes on. Like it's like
the generator powered up.
Yeah, the generator powers up for no reason at all. Because why would the generator just be on all the time?
I don't know why it was set to a timer. I just don't know why it was set to a timer.
And for whatever reason, they had music blaring on loudspeakers. Kind of weird, but it attracts
to attract the dinosaurs.
Yeah, it attracts the two different dinosaurs. It attracts the flying velociraptors and the D-Rex. But obviously, the helicopter comes. They try to signal it. First of all, I don't know why the D-Rex didn't eat that one guy. He was like right next to it, and he was like yelling at the helicopter. And this is my major critique of it, is that the D-Rex's size seems to change based on the scene, because one scene you see him eating a person and he's one size. And the next scene, when the helicopter's trying to land, he's eating the entire helicopter. Like, he's got the whole thing in his mouth, and I don't think they understand how big a helicopter is.
Well, most people don't. I mean, you see in movies all the time them landing on top of buildings. Like, helicopters are way too heavy. It has to have a specially reinforced rooftop.
Yeah.
Like, if you see it and it's not like an actual like helipad on a rooftop, no, the helicopter crashed through the upper floor and presumably keep going.
I mean, the way that they portray this is not a helicopter big enough to fit 5 or 6 people on. This is like one that you would fit like 2 people in. Because the thing has it in its mouth. And first of all, it's like one of the propellers just ripped it to shreds.
Depends. Like, did it bit it from the back first, right?
I don't know. It had it in its mouth, and I'm just like, okay.
Because if it bites it through the tail, it might avoid both sets of rotors. Might. Or the rotors might hit it and just shatter.
Who knows? Because a scene later, the guy in the electric buggy runs into the D-Rex, and the D-Rex eats him.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, you can see the suitcase he was carrying is obviously like hanging from its mouth. Originally it just had a freaking helicopter in its mouth. It's like, but then they had the nod back to the torch, and for a second there, I thought what's his face was going to get eaten. I was like, he's going to get eaten, but he's going to save the family. But then they're like, no, he can't. Duncan or whatever, yeah. He can't die, and then he somehow swims, gets all the way around, swims out.
Yeah, and the flares don't immediately attract the D-Rex again.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably. I mean, not that I wanted him to die. It's like he was actually one of the more likable, like one of the more human characters in the thing. But yeah, no, all things ended well. Like, instead of having a dinosaur follow them at the end, it was dolphins.
Yeah,
but yet they still had the Protoceratops with them, Dolores. Yeah.
So you notice that the D-Rex had extra arms, right?
So the D-Rex was, I guess, one of the many monsters that they made, because they had the 2-headed dinosaur in there. Yeah, they had the D-Rex. So the D-Rex is a combination of the T-Rex and, hell, if I know what else, because it had like T-Rex back legs. It walked kind of like a iguanodon on its knuckles, and then it had little tiny T-Rex arms too.
Yeah, so it had the T-Rex arms, but also had 2 that it could actually use to grab things, and And then its skull actually looked an awful lot like the xenomorph from Aliens. It's very like, you know, curved back with like a large smooth surface here.
Yeah, from what I gathered, there wasn't too much up in the brain cavity on that thing. I think it was just like,
Yeah, it wasn't until later they decided to make him smart.
yeah.
And then, you know,
No,
that literally came back to bite him in the ass.
then the raptor, flying raptors that were the big bads, and they had to put a scene in there just to show that, because like I said, there was one point where one of the family members was going off to take a leak, and a raptor was getting ready to pounce on him, and then the flying raptor takes the raptor away, because it's one of those, they have to assert the dominance of the new I guess mini bad or whatever.
Yeah.
Very similar to like what they did with the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3, where it had to kill the T-Rex to say, no, this is the big bad.
Yeah.
So, not that I mind that. I mean, I think it was fine. It introduced you, but again, they introduced these creatures, maybe too soon or for whatever reason. And again, I think that one was for comedic effect, because the guy was pissing and then he pissed himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, I think it was a fun movie. I mean, I don't think I go to anymore to watch a Jurassic Park movie to see how legitimate the stuff is, but I think at least this one kind of curved back towards more of, okay, I could see people doing this, minus I don't know why they would make these monsters in the first place and how they ever planned on containing them, or why the hell they went into the thing with it.
Yeah.
And an extra screen on your giant containment doors to make sure it doesn't stuck in a Snickers wrapper.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I've kind of thought about some things overall, and I think based on some other Michael Crichton works, that I think a big part of his writing was essentially like detailing very complicated systems and then watching them like destroy themselves. Because like you don't get this in the movie, but apparently in the book for the first one, like there comes a point where they're like, hey, don't all the dinosaurs have tags on them? Like, let's see how many are actually here on the island. But then they realized that it was hard coded to a certain number, because that's what Nedry was told was the maximum number of dinosaurs. And I guess like they turn that off and the thing just blows up and just shows them all over the island, because they've been reproducing. Because like that's one of the things in the first one, you're supposed to realize that the park has already fallen apart. You just don't know it yet, but it has already happened. The moment they find those eggs, like that was the evidence. Like that's it. Like there should be way more dinosaurs already than they can control. Hammond had already lost control, just didn't know it. But you see that in Crichton's other works, like in Westworld. They go through all these details about the park, and then the robot short circuit and start killing people. Andromeda strain. Half the whole point of that is to describe this big underground facility to deal with an alien virus. And it falls apart because one of the people has epilepsy, and like the flashing red light that's supposed to tell them like, hey, this is the thing that'll kill the virus, like she flips out and like doesn't remember it going through. So this massively complicated system, there's one human flaw in it, and well, it happens. And so like, that seems to be a recurring theme in his works, and it seems to continue into the other Jurassic movies.
Well, and I think John Hammond's the reason why Jurassic Park failed, and why Jurassic World was able to at least thrive for a good period of time. Because I mean, the whole reason why the first park failed, because of, obviously Dennis Nedry, but is that Dennis Nedry had no clue what he was getting paid for. And then when he finally saw what he was supposed to be coding and all this stuff, he's like, you are grossly underpaying me for this. And I mean, was it the right thing to do to go steal DNA and sell it to your competitor? Probably not. But when you are so stingy and cheap, and I mean, that's why he always echoed spare no expense, because he did spare lots of expenses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, there is also a recurring, like, I don't know, anti-corporate, maybe anti-capitalist sentiment throughout all these. Because again, like your point is, Hammond could have had a functioning park, but he chose to be a tight ass. Like, I'm sure he had the money to pay Nedry what he needed to be paid. He just didn't, because he chose to go the cheap route of, I'll just kind of vaguely describe it, and whoever sends in the low bid, that's who I'm going to hire. And that's the other thing, is like taking the low bid. Like, no, you take the competent bid, and you pay them what they're worth.
But I mean,
but it just continues. Like in the second one, it's what the second one was the mercenaries, right? They went to the island to get the dinosaurs.
Yes.
All for money, all from their competitors. Third movie, Yeah, they're after their kid, but then Dr. Grant's assistant's like, yeah, but like, we could sell these, dude. Like, come on, man.
You know, and all these movies, well, the movies that were trying to be greedy or whatever could have succeeded
I think it's literally all of them.
because okay, so Jurassic Park. I mean, again, you pay Nedry when he needs to be paid. You know make sure that contingencies and things are kept. You have people out there. Maybe
After the first death related to him, decide to ditch the Raptors, maybe.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But they're going to sell, so of course you can't.
and then obviously with the bigger draws, have a different way of showing people, like the T-Rex. Don't put them on a route where you're putting them at, dinner level with them.
Yeah.
Because I liked what they did in Jurassic World with that. They actually had like a fake log that people could see, and it was high enough up that, it made more sense. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
The second one, if they would have just kept to the, like the herbivores and just the, honestly, Vince Vaughn's character was the real villain. Like he
It's
killed.
been forever since I've seen the second one, so.
He's the reason why all the dinosaurs got loose and destroyed all the vehicles, and so they had to walk through, the park to get to the center to make a phone call, I guess. If they would have just left the animals alone, they would have been fine. But then again, every single I don't know how a stadium would have worked for viewing dinosaurs. But I mean, if they would have stuck with some herbivores, they would have been fine. I mean, again, they're like, no, we need to have a T-Rex. Why?
Yeah. But yeah, and then you get into like Jurassic World, and again, it's the whole like, oh, regular dinosaurs aren't good enough. Let's make this weird mutant freak thing that's clearly a danger to everything around it. Oh, and by the way, we also got this other guy who wants to pay us a bunch of money to like train dinosaurs to go fight wars for him or something.
And that is actually one of the reasons. There have been comics and different other media where that was the intent was to make like velociraptors like dogs.
Yeah.
That they would.
And then was it the fifth movie? Like, let's hold an auction out here at the mansion. Give you serious Resident Evil vibes from all this, like serious vibes that this could just be the Umbrella Corporation at this point.
Yeah. Then for whatever reason, the Indoraptor, when it's stalking the little clone girl, has to be the creepy thing versus just eating her.
Yeah.
Again, horror movie cliche. And then yes, Dominion, which was a good idea. It's like people want to know, like, what happens if there's just dinosaurs out in the world? But then it's like, I don't know, just the stupidest. To me, Dominion's almost like the Last Jedi of the the Jurassic Park World series. So I'm glad Rebirth kind of came back. Was there some stupid things? Yes. Was it an overall enjoyable movie? Yes. So again, don't go to it looking for legit science or anything like that. Just understand it's a monster movie, and this time it leans more towards real monsters and a little bit of dinosaurs, a little bit of that.
Yeah, and presumably if this one works, they're going to make more, but like, where do you go from here? Like, do we go back to a park again? Have it fail again?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's one. It's a good point. One fascinating thing, or one good thing about this movie is it doesn't set up that there has to be.
We get into the next movie, they've cured heart disease because of the samples.
I mean, nothing has to come. Like, we don't need to see these people again. Like, none of these people have to be. And I'm glad that they name dropped Alan Grant, which I think is the only person they should name drop. I don't think. Oh,
you don't want to name drop Hammond and all his mistakes. Dr. Wu and his mad science lab.
No, I think the next step would be to go back in time to 1993, 94. Like, so they've made a game that takes place right after two games. There's a couple games out there they've made that take place during the incident, the 93, and that I think is where they need to go if they go with another movies. Drop the Jurassic World stuff, stop that. Continue with the just put people on an island, give them a reason. Have the cleanup process. Have Biosyn trying to infiltrate the island and steal dinosaur DNA.
Yeah.
All of that. And I think that would be the next step, next place to go. Because otherwise you're just going to be telling random off stories of,
Well, we need to find out that InGen had other facilities.
Well, they have
places that will never look, like on Mars.
The moon.
The one place capitalism has yet to infect. Space.
So, well, this brief review of the movie has now lasted an hour, so
Yeah.
They'll probably cut it off at that so that we can get this edited and put out there.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Not tonight, though.
You're not going to get it done tonight?
No.
All right. Well, anyways, definitely, if you go see the movie, let us know down below what you thought about it. Was our critique good, accurate, or were we off our marbles on that?
Do you go to these movies for the science? I'm genuinely curious. If so, did you happen to watch The Core strictly for the science? Because it's about that level.
It's a little closer than The Core would be. I mean, if you can make genetic monsters, I mean, I can believe that. I don't know that you can throw enough nukes into the core to start it spinning again.
Well, of course you can. You just have to remember you're dealing with fluid dynamics and not solid dynamics. It's a rookie mistake.
Yes.
It's understandable they make it. They only had like 2 of the smartest people on the planet with them.
And they also had a some sort of whatever mineral, the unobtainium.
Unobtainium. Yes. Not the kind on Pandora. The kind made by Delroy Lindo. Oh, that's a glorious movie. Like the moment I saw the trailer for that, I was like, the science in this movie has got to be so horrible. I'm going to have to see this. And it did not disappoint.
All right. Well, anyways, like I said, let us know down in the comments and make sure you do the normal YouTube stuff, the like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, so we may have a couple more of these. I don't know. We'll have to see if we make it to the other 2 movies this month.
Superman and Fantastic Four. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's it. We'll see you later.
See you folks later.
I don't know any Jurassic Park outros, so
Yeah, I don't know.
life will find a way.